Football is the great American tradition cemented into our Sunday night time space, so much so that we often correlate football with America itself. But starting in 2017 on the third game of its season, the story is no longer about touchdowns. This story is what happens when race, politics, sports, free speech, and patriotism all collide. For more, this is In Layman's Terms.
Last spring, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick started a silent protest during the national anthem in response to police violence against African Americans. A handful of other players were willing to make the same statement. As controversial as these statements were, they were arguably small. Only a handful of players participated, and Kaepernick was benched and then, as a free agent, had not been offered a contract this entire year. He's out of the NFL.
But then Donald Trump said this.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Keep in mind that Trump said this while Puerto Rico was suffering from historic devastation from a hurricane, North Korea was threatening nuclear war, and the Congress was wrestling with yet another attempt to rewrite American healthcare.
To justify Trump's remarks on the NFL, Trump supporters have been circulating three major myths on both online and on television. Let's address them. Myth number one, it is a rule in the NFL that you must stand for the national anthem.
The verdict? False. The word anthem does not appear once in the entire NFL rulebook. Honoring the flag is not a rule, it's paid advertising. Prior to 2009, it was customary for the NFL team to simply just stay in the locker room until after the anthem was played. Now, why do they do this today, you ask? Because the government paid the NFL millions of dollars so that players could be shown standing for the anthem to generate support for the military. All this patriotic fervor is as thin as saran wrap, and just as transparent.
I have no problem with the players of the NFL being patriotic. By all means, if you want to be patriotic, go do it. What I do have a problem with is when politicians and pundits decide to use this as a way to attack free speech. And I find it both offensive and a bit ironic that at the same time we are singing a song about free speech, we're also devaluating that speech in its entirety by not allowing people to protest against it. And here's the thing, this is not the first time this has happened. America, unfortunately, has had a history of telling black athletes to keep their mouths shut.
According to Time magazine, when Muhammad Ali refused the draft for the Vietnam War, he was vilified and stripped of his heavyweight title. When two athletes, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, in the US Olympic team raised their hands for Black Power during the 1968 Olympics, they were promptly kicked off the team and were issued death threats. It's not just boxing in the Olympics. There was also Jackie Robinson, Arthur Ashe, Jesse Owens, and Muhammad Abdul-Rauf. These players all used their status of celebrity sportsmen to bring change. Colin Kaepernick is just the modern day version.
Myth number two, that players have no right to protest at work.
False. Players in the NFL aren't typical employees. Most employees, like you and I, are something called at-will employees. This basically means that the company can fire the employee at will at any time for any reason they deem fit. And on the flip side, the employee can quit at any time and go work for a competitor. But players in the NFL are not at-will employees. Tom Brady cannot quit the Patriots and join the Rams, even if he wanted to. Players and their teams are bound by contract. The contract decides what a player can and cannot do. And guess what? NFL contracts do not require a player to stand during the anthem. So while you cannot protest at work, they can.
Now that being said, the NFL can terminate contracts. The head coaches can do it all the time for players with unruly behavior. But normally this is saved for instances in where the players have deemed crimes a lot worse than sitting down or kneeling. Take domestic violence. It wasn't until 2014 that domestic violence was outlawed in the NFL draft. And that was only because of Ray Rice, the Baltimore Ravens running back, was shown on video beating up his unconscious fiancée and then spitting on her. When did we start to correlate domestic violence with kneeling? When did we want to give kneeling the exact same punishment? And finally, when did kneeling become just as bad as domestic violence, animal abuse, or murder? The answer? It isn't as bad. The third myth is that kneeling is akin to disrespecting the military.
False. Correlation is not causation. Just because the national anthem is often associated with our military does not mean that the national anthem represents the military. Both the national anthem and the military support the country, and more importantly, the Constitution. But one can support the military and still feel that the country needs to be improved. In fact, Kaepernick himself in multiple interviews has stated that he supports our troops. The military doesn't swear to uphold the anthem. The anthem is a song. They swear to uphold the Constitution. Not once has Kaepernick protested against the military. What he is protesting is how black Americans are routinely being treated like criminals. If a black person is being executed by the police without a trial, the Constitution is being violated. It is thus their patriotic duty to protest. Donald Trump, implying that protesting against this social injustice is bad and should be fired, is basically an affront to what the military is actually fighting for. As former CIA director and 4-star General Michael Hayden wrote, "As a 39-year-old military veteran, I think I know something about the flag, the anthem, patriotism, and I think I know why we fight. It's not to allow the president to defeat us by wrapping himself in the national banner. I never imagined myself saying this before Friday, but if now forced to choose in this dispute, put me down with Kaepernick."
I do want to end this story on a good note. Colin Kaepernick is not alone in any of this. He is joined by the Seattle Seahawks, the Tennessee Titans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, as they all decided to sit in the locker room during the national anthem. This is also joined by 200 different players in the NFL, who were seen either kneeling or sitting during the national anthem itself. And despite the fact that Colin Kaepernick is not currently playing, that didn't stop the Players Association from giving him an MVP title in the first week. Colin Kaepernick's message is there, it's stuck, and it's only going to keep growing. Think of it like this. Donald Trump is akin to a human brush fire. He's big, bold, and impossible to look away. However, like a brush fire, when Donald Trump burns something, we all get sympathy for it. I do hope Colin Kaepernick is signed on to a team. And I am going to say this, he does have the right to protest. He's just like you and me. He's an American citizen. And because of that, we all have the duty to protest a system and where black Americans can be shot unjustly by cops and the cops can walk away from it. As long as we have this system and where black Americans are terrified of the people that are supposed to be protecting them, then I guess it's our duty to take the knee. My name is Max Malik, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.